Today, we're dissecting a totally terrifying survival protocol from a remote village called Vikram Ganj. If you've ever wondered what actually happens when modern, arrogant skepticism collides head-on with generational nightmare fuel, well, this explainer lays it out in brutal clarity. Our focus today is the Amavasya curse, and I've got to say, the level of absolute dread built into the rules of this specific village is unlike anything we've explored before. So let's just get right into it.
There is a local saying there that translates to, just as death is silent, so too is this night. And you have to understand, this isn't just some poetic, dramatic folklore. It's a literal, highly functional comparison that the locals live by. The absolute deafening silence of the village on this one specific night is equated directly to the inescapable silence of death itself. Basically, if you break the silence, you invite death. It is literally that simple, and it's absolutely terrifying.
Section 1. The lore of Vikram Ganj.
Now, on a normal day, Vikram Ganj is just your average run-of-the-mill village. You got kids playing in the dirt, folks chatting on the narrow paths. Everything is completely ordinary. But on Amavasya, which is the new moon night, everything changes. The entire place plunges into absolute dead silence. We are talking about a fear so deeply ingrained over centuries that people literally train themselves to breathe softly just to avoid making any accidental noise. Because if you do make a sound, well, the consequence isn't just getting spooked. It is a gruesome, highly unnatural death, a headless fate, where the next morning, a body is found so mutilated that they can't even tell the head from the torso. This paralyzing fear governs literally every single resident.
So the survival protocol they follow is incredibly rigid. First step, you have to get inside by 7 p.m. All doors locked, all windows shut tight, no humans, no animals left outside. Second step, by exactly 9 p.m., you must maintain utter absolute silence. And the third step, just survive until dawn. It's essentially this massive, invisible lockdown against a totally unseen threat.
Section 2. Science versus superstition.
To really understand how this plays out, we need to look at two very different mindsets. On one side, we have Diwakar. He's a top-tier engineering student, and he represents modern science, cold logic, and frankly, a pretty heavy dose of mockery. He completely dismisses anything supernatural. On the other side, you have his college roommate, Alok. Alok is actually a Vikram Ganj local. He represents that generational trauma, the strict adherence to these bizarre rules, and just pure, unadulterated terror of the dark.
So when Alok warns him about the village, Diwakar is just completely dismissive. He literally tells Alok, "Grow up. You're a science student. What is the point of science if you actually believe this?" He sees Alok's deep-rooted fear as nothing more than backward ignorance, and he even loudly laughs at him about it on their hostel roof. Diwakar's skepticism is so absolute that he actually forces a really dangerous bet. He insists on traveling to Vikram Ganj on the night of Amavasya, specifically to intentionally break that 9 p.m. silence rule, all just to prove to Alok that there is absolutely nothing hiding in the dark.
Section 3. The ticking clock. Against all of Alok's desperate warnings, they take a bus and actually arrive at the village. At 6 p.m., Diwakar is looking around at normal village activity. He's laughing, pointing out how ordinary it all is, thinking this whole thing is just a massive joke. But right at 7 p.m., the atmosphere violently shifts. Doors and windows just rapidly slam and lock shut, the kids vanish off the streets. Fast forward to 8:40 p.m., and the entire village drops into this dead, heavy silence. It gets so quiet that the crickets out in the field sound deafeningly loud. And then it hits 8:59 p.m., the final seconds. Inside Alok's house, nobody is speaking, no phones are ringing. It is so quiet you can hear the sharp tick-tock of the wall clock. 10 seconds left.
In those final, agonizing seconds, Alok silently grabs Diwakar's hand, basically begging him with his eyes not to go outside. So the question is, will Diwakar actually listen? Will his scientific arrogance finally break when he's faced with this suffocating, incredibly real silence?
Section 4. The Call of Death.
The clock strikes 9 p.m. The silence deepens to a level that just feels unnatural. Diwakar yanks his hand away from Alok, pulls open the front door, and steps right outside into a dead world that literally feels like it's holding its breath. There's no wind. The crickets have stopped. No stray dogs. It is just a complete vacuum. And then he breaks the foundational rule of the entire village with one single word. Hello. And a delayed, distant echo mocks him back. Just a faint hello from far away. But, as an engineering student, DeWalker knows perfectly well that echoes just don't delay like that in an open, flat village. The sensory horror starts to close in. As DeWalker walks down the dirt path, he suddenly hears a second set of footsteps echoing his own. Tuck, tuck. Invisible footprints are beginning to follow him. He abruptly stops walking, and the extra footsteps stop right with him.
Panic starts setting in. He speeds up his pace, trying to rationalize what's happening, and the sound immediately follows suit. Tap, tap. He finally realizes, with absolute dread, that something is walking right behind him, matching his every single move. But when he whips around to look, there is absolutely nothing there in the dark. Then, the terror gets uncomfortably intimate. An unseen presence, standing right next to the walker's ear, whispers a chilling warning: don't make a sound. He violently jumps back. He's entirely alone, but his ironclad logic is rapidly crumbling into primal fear. And then, the escalation hits all at once. He keeps walking and reaches the locked village temple. Out of nowhere, this bizarre, sinister laugh echoes from inside the locked structure. A single ring of the heavy temple bell sounds out, moving entirely on its own. Invisible footprints physically form in the dirt, walking directly towards him and stopping right at his feet. And suddenly, the dead silence is violently shattered. He is surrounded by dozens of broken, terrifying, guttural voices echoing from all directions. This horror isn't just in his head anymore, it is absolute and it is closing in fast.
Right then, DeWalker hears someone call his name from behind. It's Alok. He's offering a lifeline, telling him to come inside quickly. DeWalker grabs his friend's hand, breathing this massive sigh of relief. But the hand is ice cold, and it's abnormally long. He looks down and realizes with mounting horror, that is not Alok. It's a grotesque, deformed entity with an arm twice the normal length, a creature that uses vocal mimicry, and it hunts exclusively by sound.
The entity stares at him with his terrifying visage and whispers just one word: sound. DeWalker completely loses it and sprints blindly into the dark. But here's the catch. The harder he runs, the heavier he breathes. He realizes with suffocating horror that the entire village is crawling with these invisible shadows, and hundreds of them are now converging on him from every direction simply because his panicked lungs are drawing air.
He finally collapses in the dirt in front of the temple, his heart just pounding out of his chest. In a desperate, final attempt to follow the rules of the village, DeWalker holds his breath. For a few agonizing seconds, the approaching footsteps actually stop. The village is silent again. He genuinely thinks he might just make it. But then, a voice whispers directly into his ear, delivering the devastating final blow. It's too late, and DeWalker's screams tear through the Amavasya night.
The next morning, 0 traces of DeWalker were found. When the sun finally came up and the villagers tentatively stepped out of their homes, all they found were deep, chaotic footprints in the dirt near the temple, and long, heavy drag marks fading off into the dark, underground unknown. The absolute law of the village had claimed another victim.
Which leaves us with a seriously haunting question. What truly lurks in the silence of Vikramganj on Amavasya night? It's a chilling reminder that sometimes ancient, bizarre rules aren't just backward superstitions meant to be mocked. Sometimes they are literal survival guides written in blood. Think about that the next time you find yourself alone in the dead of night and you're tempted to break the silence. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, stay curious.